The head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
Welcome to episode 4 of The Head, the Tail, the Whole Damn Thing. Can you believe it's 4 already? This week, Mike D. McCarty and James Knight are going to talk about Beastmaster and The Exorcist. What's that?
You better check your copy there.
Oh, I see. Man-Legs and Manhunter. I'm sorry?
Yes, try again.
It's Manhunter and LongLegs.
Copy, that'll work.
Let's drop in and see what they're talking about.
Live show. Sorry, live show.
Live show.
Yeah, open the chat in the live show and you'll see it in there.
Okay. Oh, wait. Ah, there we go. Fuck, so many chat windows. Discord. So many chat windows.
Brought to you by Discord.
Chat, and more chat.
Are there not enough chat windows in your life?
Yeah. Do you need more pop-ups? Does your computer beep and you're not sure what that sound means? No? Get Discord and spend 3 hours looking for where that sound came from.
Exactly.
Let's get this show on the road. I got the good coffee tonight. So.
Oh, good. I just have a big, tall glass of water.
Oh.
I'm bringing it back to the earth.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nice.
It is.
Fresh, clean water.
Yeah.
No, I'm 2 hours later than you, so I need some fucking hot coffee. Power through this.
Zip it in there.
Finish it after midnight. I need the smooth, bold taste of Plantation Blue, Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee.
After midnight, that's when we're going to let it all lay down.
I think so. And hang out, maybe.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, man. What are we doing today? What is it?
Man. Michael. Man. Hunter. Manhunter.
Works for me. Little Fred Dryer Easter egg there for those of you who might remember Hunter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I forgot all about that show.
Not anymore. Now you're going to remember to the end.
I'm probably going to look it up on Tubi, right? I'll fall asleep to the Hunter channel.
Fred Dryer, and who was the woman on that? Oh man, a quick
yeah.
Down.
Come on, internet.
Rotten.
Oh, I hit Hunter and it took me to a Jeep dealership. That's not it.
It's not Connie Selica. It's not.
Ooh, that sounds familiar then.
No, it's not Connie Selica. It's not Stephanie Zimbalist. Who is it? There she is. I see her.
Oh yeah. Okay, I got her name. Stephanie Kramer. Yeah, Stephanie Kramer. John Amos was in that show too.
He couldn't have been on it all the time.
Captain Dolan.
Huh. Well, that's great. Must have been like his return to TV because they did John Amos dirty there for a little while.
Yeah.
He got blacklisted from sticking up for himself on Good Times.
Well, good for him. I mean, not for being blacklisted, but, for sticking up for yourself.
Oh, John Amos is the man.
Fuck yeah.
But we're not here to talk about the John Amos catalog, although we could do a little Roots and Die Hard 2 and...
I was just going to mention Die Hard 2.
Beastmaster. Let's not forget about him in that one.
Wait a minute. Is he in Beastmaster?
Hell yeah, he's in Beastmaster.
Oh, I mean, you said that like angrily.
Well, I'm a little surprised you don't remember.
It's been so long since I've seen The Beastmaster. Mark Singer as The Beastmaster.
Still works. Still, it's like a great B movie. And Michelle, my wife, and I had an argument a few months back. Which movie was better, Beastmaster or Legend. And I said Beastmaster is a better movie than Legend. And so we watched them both like one night after the other.
Okay. And?
Beastmaster is a better movie. She agreed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She agreed.
Legend is beautiful. Legend, Ridley Scott, right? Absolute beautiful, but it's, you know, fantastic makeup on Tim Curry. Yep. That hag in Legend, what's her name? Like Maud Mucklebone or whatever.
Meg Mucklebone, yeah.
There it is. Fantastic. But ultimately, it's style over substance. And Beastmaster is just fun, lighthearted B-movie romp. You know, you got all the animals in there. You got some touching moments, some heartbreaking moments. You got like the Judas Priest destruction machines, you know, when the guys get the masks put on their head and then they come after you with the spiked gauntlets like they're
those guys were berserkers, right?
Yeah and fit right into the old sort of like early 80s heavy metal leather boy Rob Halford would approve aesthetic.
Yeah, staring at that giant poster on the wall and not realizing till years later. You know, speaking of style over substance, what's our second movie tonight?
Oh, LongLegs.
LongLegs. Okay.
And boy, do we have... I've got things to say about it. Well, and I hope you do too, since this is
this is a movie review podcast about those two particular movies. Yeah.
No, actually, I thought you covered it well, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I wasn't able to watch either one, so go ahead. Let's talk about Beastmaster.
No, let's talk about Manhunter.
All right, Manhunter.
Let's do it. So, Manhunter, 1986, directed by Michael Mann.
Yep. This was not my Michael Mann cherry bursting, but this was the second Michael Mann movie I saw. First one being Thief.
Oh, sure, of course. Just a few years early. What's that like? Thief's like 81, I think. Something
or
like
80,
that.
82 maybe. But Thief, fantastic movie. I to this day, I love Thief. And I've always held Manhunter in high regard too. And you know, when I first saw it, I didn't know Thomas Harris. I didn't know the book or any of that stuff until after Silence of the Lambs, which, you know, we're going to have to say at some point is our mother's favorite movie.
Yeah, I think we've already said that, but it always bears repeating because it's weird. I remember when Silence of the Lambs came out, telling Mom, "Hey, you got to see this movie. It's great." And she was like, "No, I don't want to see that. Isn't that a serial killer?" And then kind of made her watch it, and then she, I think, maybe taped it off, like VHS taped it off TV one day and wore that tape into the ground.
I'm sure we bought it for her probably on VHS as well and DVD. Yeah.
But yeah, Michael Mann, of course, would go on to direct like Heat and The Insider. Looking at his IMDb, you can see he's not churning them out every year or every other year. He's just like every few years he comes out with something. Ali, he directed Ali as well. Yeah, and he definitely has a distinct style. There's definitely some trademark Michael Mann bits, and you can see him on display here in Manhunter. Yeah. You want to tell us what it's about a little bit?
Sure. Man-munter.
Man-muncher. That's a different.
Yeah, that was a completely different movie that I did not watch.
But coincidentally had the leather boy costume from Beastmaster in it. I think it was in Man-muncher.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, goodness. You're welcome for that one, everyone out there. That's beautiful. Manhunter, yes, Michael Mann, 1986. It is a FBI procedural, and it is from the first Thomas Harris. It was the Thomas Harris book Red Dragon, which, of course, Silence of the Lambs was the second book to have Hannibal Lecter in it. And then, of course, Hannibal Lecter just really took off with Silence of the Lambs. And they ended up remaking this movie as Red Dragon. a few years ago. Actually, it's probably been more like 10 years by now, right?
Oh, I think it's even longer than that. I
Yeah.
think it's probably like between 15 and 20 years.
And if you go to the Hannibal show as well, the 3-season show, which if you haven't seen it, and I know you haven't, but people out there, if you haven't seen it, that show is fan-fucking-tastic. It is absolutely King Fancy. And King Fancy is something that I came up with one time because I tried to text fan-fucking-tastic to somebody, and Siri auto-corrected it to King Fancy, and I went, nope, that'll work.
King Fancy. That's a top-notch rating right there.
Yeah. So Hannibal, the TV show, is King Fancy. And the second half of the 3rd season, right before that show finished, is also the same story, Red Dragon. So it's been done in the movie Manhunter, it's been done in Red Dragon, and it's been done in season 3. And I would say, I mean, I'm just jumping right into the review right now. I'm going to say that I love Manhunter. I was a little annoyed when Red Dragon came out because I love Manhunter, but Red Dragon does a lot of things better. And then
I am surprised to hear you say that. But I couldn't agree more, actually. I'm really surprised. I thought I was going to have, because I have some real criticisms of Manhunter. This movie, I think, gets a lot of credit, and a lot of people remember this movie as being, I think, better than it actually is. Not to say that there's not some really great stuff in there, because there is, but there's some real sort of lapses in this movie as well, and I would agree. I think Red Dragon pulls some of those story beats off. That's Manhunter.
Yeah, Manhunter.
I think it takes care of some of it. Let's say it takes care of some of those story beats better than Manhunter does.
Case in point, the end. The end of Manhunter is kind of a mess, whereas the end of Red Dragon is a little bit better and also more faithful to the book.
Yeah. We can the climax of this. I watched this one with my wife, and we both looked at each other, and at the end, and we were like, "That was your plan."
Yeah,
Get her, Ray? That was your plan? So I distinctly remember this movie, seeing this movie far too young, as I saw many horror movies. I think you had rented it on VHS when we were still living together at home. So this is like just before you moved out. I think you got on VHS. And I remember watching a lot of this movie, and I distinctly remember the crashing through the window at the end, and thinking that was super exciting. And so I was waiting for that all movie, and when it finally happened, I went, "Huh, that's a terrible. Why would you ever? Why, if you're the cop zeroing in on the serial killer, and I realized there was urgency there, why would you just run through the glass window at him?"
Yeah, it's a little odd. An interesting thing about that particular scene is that after smashing through the window, when they meet face to face for that first second, that's the first time William Peterson and Tom Noonan met.
Really?
Yeah, because they didn't. Yep, they didn't want to meet each other on set or any of that prior. It was like staying away from each other, and that's the first time they actually met was after smashing through that window. It's good.
They were taking their craft seriously.
This has been a Hollywood Minute.
Well, you know what? The performances in Manhunter are good. And I can critique a lot about this movie, but like I said, there's a lot of stuff that is good. And their performances, especially I felt like Tom Noonan does a really good job at being that sort of detached, creepy psychopath. It's just right in his wheelhouse. Have you ever met Tom Noonan in real life, by any chance?
No, I'd love to, though, because I would tell him that, I loved him. not in a weird way, but hi, I love you.
I remember you from Man Muncher.
What I meant was Wolfen. I remember him from Wolfen.
Oh yeah,
which is another movie close to my heart.
Yeah, the dude has never stopped working. It looks like he's got a huge, list of credits on his IMDb page. I mean, he's just constantly, he's in film and TV. He's in Heat too. I haven't seen Heat in a while, but I noticed when I was looking at it earlier, I was like, oh, Michael Mann, going back to Tom Noonan for Heat. Is he part of the crew?
I don't know, because I don't remember him in Heat. But then again, I think I forgot Danny Trejo was in Heat too, because he is as well, right?
Danny Trejo is in every movie, isn't he? These days, isn't like Hollywood contractually obligated to put Danny Trejo?
That's how you get a tax credit by shooting in California, is Danny Trejo has to be in the movie.
I heard somewhere that Danny Trejo has the Guinness World Record for the actor who's died the most in film history. Do you know if that's true or not?
I do not know if that's true.
It's easy to believe, though, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely easy to believe. I worked at a company called K&B for a lot of years, and we worked on Machete Kills. That was one of the things we did. And we did a miniature version of Danny Trejo, like a Danny Trejo baby that still had like the tattoos and everything on and the facial hair. That thing was fucking hilarious. And I got some really great pictures of him cuddling it like a baby. I'll have to send them to you because they're they're amazing. And you know what? I'll throw one on the Instagram. Yeah.
I was just going to say, can we share that on the Instagram or in the Discord? Because
absolutely.
That sounds like something everyone wants to see.
Yeah. I agree.
But we digress talking about Trejo. Let's delve into Manhunter a little bit more. So what did you think? I mean, you said you loved it for a long time. Obviously, we just revisited it. What are your thoughts this time?
I like going back to the 80s. I like going back to the color and the neon of Michael Mann. And I know Michael Mann uses Tangerine Dream for a lot of soundtracks, and this sounds like a Tangerine Dream soundtrack, but it's not. It's Michael Rubini. Yeah, and Michael Rubini is like, Michael Kamen and Michael Rubini got together and had a few drinks, and they, went driving and crashed their car into Tangerine Dream, and that's what this comes out sounding like.
Totally. Yeah, heavy synth, very moody. Absolutely has that Tangerine Dream sound, or the Vangelis sound too. Even I did a little like that Blade Runner, like sort of, I don't know what that electric harp or whatever it is. They sort of the chimes they play with there.
They swerve to miss Vangelis, whatever the fuck you say, into standing in the street and hit Tangerine Dream's taxi. I'll say that in the book, Red Dragon, Hannibal Lecter has 6 fingers. That's like one of the weird things about him. And I think that they originally planned to do that with who plays Lecter in this movie?
Oh, it's Brian Cox.
Brian Cox. I think he does a fantastic job. He's a very different Hannibal Lecter from Anthony Hopkins.
Oh yeah.
But and not a bad one in any way. I mean, I think he does. He brings across the cruel, get in your head atmosphere that Hannibal has, and that's cool. So I like the soundtrack. I like the look of it. The Michael Mann direction, the music, of course. Let's see, Stephen Lang, young Stephen Lang playing a complete asshole. Does Stephen Lang ever not play an asshole?
That's a good question, because of course the only thing I think of him mostly from Avatar and from Tombstone are the 2 movies where he always pops in my mind first. Yeah, and he's a complete ass in both of those.
Completely.
Although to see him play kind of like a sniveling sort of reporter in this, when he is such a fierce jarhead monster in the Avatar movies. Is nice to see him to see an actor have that sort of range.
Yeah, absolutely. I love William Peterson. I like him. Like, if I was making the ultimate story of Red Dragon, I would use Anthony Hopkins for Hannibal, right? I would
Sure.
use William Peterson for this role.
Will
And
Graham.
absolutely. I would use the Michael Mann direction. I would use the Michael Rubini soundtrack. I'm leaning heavily into Manhunter in my ultimate version of this.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would give it to Tom Noonan. I think I might go Fiennes.
Oh, Ray Fiennes. Yeah.
Yeah. He really brought like a very subtle, abused child version of the character to life, as opposed to Tom Noonan, who's just a ridiculously tall, kind of monstrous guy that you would be afraid to bump into in a hallway or a darkened hallway or an alley or something like that. Just like he's got this deadpan look on his face through a lot of it, and it really, really, really works for the character.
Well, I think, in Red Dragon, they give that character a little bit more of his due. And obviously, Ray Fiennes is a tremendous actor.
Yeah.
But they give, I remember as I'm watching Manhunter, I'm remembering the scenes from Red Dragon. And I was just wondering, like, when are those going to happen in Manhunter? Like, eventually we've got to get like the tiger scene, which they do, of course. But a tremendously powerful scene, I think, is pretty cool. Him taking the blind Joan Allen in Manhunter. I always loved Joan Allen, but I think it's is it Emily Watson who plays the blind girl in Red Dragon. Both of those are great things, but they give Francis Dollarhide, the character that Tom Noonan and Ray Fiennes play, they give him a little bit short shrift in Manhunter, I thought. Like they don't go into anything. I thought this was kind of interesting that, they call the serial killer the Tooth Fairy because he's biting his victims. But then they
barely
never
touch that. Barely touch it.
You kind of see him put in some teeth at one moment, but they never go into explaining it. Yeah, and I believe that they do in Red Dragon, right? Isn't he putting in like his grandmother's dentures or something like that, and biting people?
Something like that. And it's all about his character, becoming the Red Dragon.
Yeah,
like he's evolving into this beast, so to speak. And yeah, they don't really get into that in Manhunter.
No, and that to me, ultimately, so my biggest problem with Manhunter was that I felt like there were a lot of times where they were telling us instead of showing us.
Sure.
You would find out bits of information that would move the plot along because, like, a phone call would come through. They're like, "Oh, we cracked the code, and he gave away your home address or something." And I thought, well, why couldn't we have seen that scene? That would have been so much more interesting than just you telling us in this way. And I thought that repeatedly throughout the movie, there were just little moments where they did that. And then, at the same time, there were like shots where it was like, I mean, Michael Mann loves the sunset on the beach. He really does. Just about every one of his movies, I think at some point you're going to be looking out at the horizon, the sunset's going down. He loves the neon lights of the city.
With a long key on a synth droning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So you get these long... sort of luxurious takes from Michael Mann, going through a cityscape or the sun going down on the beach. So he takes his time with stuff like that. But then conversely, sometimes when I thought, like, if you had just trimmed those long takes back a little bit, you could have given us a whole scene where you show us this moment instead of just telling us this moment.
Sure.
And Obviously, he knows more about filmmaking than I do, but I think it could have made it a more interesting movie. The few times that I felt like it fell into that pitfall, at least.
I do really like William Peterson as Will Graham, as I mentioned before. Something about William Peterson I've always been a huge fan of, and part of that comes from To Live and Die in L.A. I love that movie too. Again, that's like an '80s procedural, movie, and I think it was the year before this, so he came off of that movie into this movie. He's got the same look, the same feel. I've always liked the way he walks. He walks like a guy that knows exactly where the fuck he's going. He's got a purpose. He's on his way. It's a little bow-legged, but it's fast. And he's just like click, 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 click in like cowboy boots. And his hips are swaying. And he's just like, I'm a badass and I'm headed in a certain direction. And I've always loved that about what he brings to these characters. And when he's sitting in the room and he's watching the movies and stuff, and he's looking at all the photos of everything. I love when he has those little breakdowns where he's like, you touched her face, didn't you, son of a bitch? You took off your gloves and you touched her. And he's just like, he's screaming at the TV, like, didn't you son of a bitch? And I'm like, I fucking love that. And he does that like 2 or 3 times in the fucking movie. And it's so great every time he does it.
It's interesting too, because they start out the movie kind of with one of, or I don't know if they started out, but it's near to one of the first scenes when he goes into the crime scene in the bedroom, and there's the blood sort of all, sprayed on the wall, and he's talking, he's clinical about it at first, talking about the arterial spray and where the bodies are located, and then he slips into that mode. And at that point in the movie, they haven't given you any sort of explanation or clue as to what he's doing. It's not a fault of the movie. It's kind of intriguing. But it takes about an hour before he has that conversation with his son in the grocery store.
Which is great.
It's great. And he talks about how he tries to get into the head of these killers, and he basically explains his whole methodology to his kid, and then it ends in possibly the oddest product placement of all time. Did you notice that?
Yes.
He goes through this whole thing where he's like, I try and picture what they might have seen and how they felt when they did these things. And his kid's like, are they bad thoughts? He's like, they're the worst thoughts you can imagine. And then his kid is like, Mom says you like Folgers. Is that the coffee you like?
Yeah. That's so good.
And I just remember thinking what? Not only a left turn, but a full product placement of Folgers, the drink of FBI profilers everywhere.
Good to the last drop. Was that Folgers? Was that good to the last drop?
That might be Maxwell House.
Oh yeah. It was and fill it to the rim with rich
brim.
Brim. What the fuck? We love coffee.
Yeah, no, I just finished my cup of Jamaica Blue Mountain Coffee.
Nice. Now that scene you were mentioning a second ago, where the camera is on him, on William Peterson, and he is in the murder house, and he's explaining everything, talking into his tape recorder. The camera is always on him, and he's talking about the arterial spray. And then there's that quick moment where, boom, the camera doesn't pan or anything. It's like, I believe it's a quick edit to what he's looking at, and you just see the blood all over the room. And it's such a shockingly good moment. You're like, oh yeah, that is the way you fucking show a crime scene.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It's well done. I mean, Michael Mann, it's funny you said you love the look and the feel of the 80s, and Michael Mann can bring it, right? Because he was pretty responsible for Miami Vice too around this time, wasn't he? Didn't he have a big hand in that?
Absolutely.
Right? So he's about as 80s as it gets, and loves his neon, loves his color. There's a lot like it seems like his house. William Peterson, Will Graham's house, it's pretty much bathed in blue light, the moonlight coming through the windows. There's always green light sort of tracing around things. And then you get that crime scene, and when it flashes to it, almost all completely white with the red blast of blood on it. When you get to Hannibal Lecter's cell, right? All completely white.
Yeah.
Man loves changing that palette up.
Absolutely. Didn't you son of a bitch? You kept the palette white. You threw some blues on it, didn't you? Didn't you? Right? I think we're going to do that all night.
Just go into Will Graham profiling mode.
Will Grahabisms. Oh, boy.
Yeah, and the music, too, you talked about how you'd pick the synthesizer stuff if you were making your ultimate version of this. To me, it works most of the time, but there were a couple of moments when it just felt kind of inappropriate. I'm missing them right now, but I remember it taking me. It's always great when it's like, it's the crane shot or the helicopter shot over the city at night, or we're fading from one thing to another. But it is jarring a few times. I think there's even like there's one of the synth songs that has some vocals behind it too that I was like, oh, this hasn't really aged well. But one song that is used incredibly effectively, even though the climax ain't great.
Yeah.
In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. Like,
baby.
That is a great choice for like the crazy climax shootout in a house.
Yeah, like the real-time 20-minute ending of the movie with that song. Absolutely.
Just pumping the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, they do cut it a little bit short. It's not the 20-minute version, but it's pretty long and it is well done. Yeah.
There's not 9 minutes of drum solo in it, I think.
No. It just keeps going. Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I remember correctly, I heard somewhere a long time ago that when they're firing the shotgun in the house, they're really firing a shotgun in the house. Like
really?
That stuff. Yeah. And people were saying, yeah, that wasn't cool. It's like when the director of Exorcist fired a shotgun on stage just to get everybody's fucking attention and make them all terrified, even though it had blanks in it. But yeah, I had heard somewhere that a real shotgun was fired through real parts of the house at times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Nuts. Because one of my criticisms with the climax of it, and it couldn't have been this necessarily, is that Tom Noonan is just like, he's gone Terminator mode at the end of this. Because he's like one-handing a shotgun. You know what I mean? Just using it like a pistol and blowing people away. And then he gets shot like 7 times with a 38 before he goes down. Sort of broke the suspension of disbelief on that one.
Absolutely. It goes from FBI profiler procedural to, like you say, Terminator.
Yeah, it really happens. Like when he goes crashing through the window, it's almost like Michael Mann just threw the script up in the air and it was like, fuck it, let's do it all tonight. And they just like hurriedly finished everything they could. Because for a movie that seems so thought out about everything, it's really kind of a slapdash, shoot 'em up ending.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. It's a little disheartening after sitting through what I think is a pretty very well made, nearly brilliant movie up to that point. And then suddenly it's just got this sort of like you say, tacked on, we got one night to shoot this, let's go. Get it over with. We got to be out of town tomorrow morning, at dawn. It just kind of has that feeling.
I might disagree with you a little bit just about how brilliant the movie is. And I'm trying to put myself like if I was watching this back in '86, and I'm not sure I'm able to completely. I feel like this movie has like sort of it has a more of a cult status because Silence of the Lambs overshadowed it so much, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that it just became one of those things where like after a while as trivia, you'd almost be like, well, Silence of the Lambs isn't Hannibal Lecter's first appearance in a movie. It was really Brian Cox and Manhunter. Just so the other person would be like, Manhunter? And I just feel like it became this sort of like, oh yeah, you have to see Manhunter. It's amazing.
Sure.
And while parts of it are amazing, I don't think it completely holds up as well. Like I said, and we talked about before, there's parts of Red Dragon that do some story beats from Manhunter much better than this movie did. It's far from a perfect film. But I will say, like putting myself back there, this has got to be one of the first FBI profiler movies, right?
I think so.
Like,
I mean, I can't really think of anything prior to this.
It's become a huge trope in TV and film now, but I feel like in '86 it was probably pretty interesting and pretty fresh. And there's another part of this movie that actually reminded me a little bit of Bullet. The Steve McQueen. Right. Everybody remembers.
Bullet was the first police procedural.
Now, Bullet, everybody, of course, remembers the car chase, right? And how Steve McQueen is the coolest. But Bullet also has this funny thing where they showcase all this new technology.
Yeah.
Like the last time I saw Bullet, I was like, oh, look at them using a car phone in this. And that must have been brand new. And at one point, they use a fax machine in Bullet, right? And I'm like, oh, they were just like going through all the latest toys in that a police station might have at its disposal. And there are times when Manhunter does the same thing. They go into the lab and like they're analyzing the notes and they're using a spectrometer to look through the ink and all this stuff and put together all these clues. And so I think that probably had a big impact. I mean, I would assume that would have a big impact on people then too, to see just the way it's not a mistake that William Peterson became sort of like the head of the CSI franchise for a number of years. I think it's directly because of this movie. But
100%.
This movie gave birth to the whole profiling. I feel like it was one of the, if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first, profiling police tech investigation CSI type shows. And yeah, I think I would imagine people were impressed by just some of those feats, some of those tech pieces being showcased back in the day.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. It does have that sort of, as far as the 80s go, that fresh vibe of we haven't done this before. And it's nice and slow too, not too slow, I don't think, but it's brooding. And that really works well for the character of Bill Graham because of that history that he had prior to the movie that they allude to about catching, Hannibal Lecter and the fact that he went into a loony bin, which is why we get that fantastic scene between him and his son right before they discuss Folgers about like, yes, that's why I went to that special place. Is because I got too wrapped up in the thoughts of those people.
Yeah,
yeah. But it
really is a great moment.
Yeah. So what are we gonna rate this movie with?
What? How many dentures?
Yes.
What does he kill people with? He
I don't know. He pulls that stocking over the top part of his head at the end of the movie, which is fantastically creepy.
Yeah. They took his already creepy looking face and managed to just twist it a little bit. And that's a good look.
Yeah. How many panties on the head do we give it?
How many panties on the head? So here's the thing. I thought I was going to like this movie a lot more than I did. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm only going to go with, I'm only going 6.5 panties on the head.
Okay. All right. I am going to go with 7.5 panties on the head. I think, obviously, I wish there were more panties on the head, but I mean, who doesn't these days, right? For me, it just falls apart at the end. And there's like I said, a few things that Red Dragon does superior, and the end is one of them. Like, it just feels it. I love Inagata-Devita. I think that part of it is really, really cool, but I just wish it was less than, all right, we just show up at the house and there's a quick shootout and it's over. Anticlimactic.
For me, the biggest problem, and I have problems at the end, but I think even more than that, for me, the biggest problem with it is I feel sometimes like Michael Mann got too wrapped up in his filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
And there were times where like I needed less like, long drawn out, synthy, moody, dreamy moments and just a bit more like storytelling, just moments where he could have just focused on the particular specific beats of the script and shown us rather than just told us about them.
You want William Peterson to walk at a fast, badass clip right to the next plot point. Rather than sit there and go, how about that scene where he's on the in the airplane and he's looking at like the crime scene photos on the airplane.
Oh yes.
And then he falls asleep and then little girl next to him has a panic attack and freaks out because she sees these pictures of murdered women, splayed out in front of him on his airplane tray.
Yeah, I did wonder about. I was like, that's maybe not the best place to pull these out.
Absolutely, it reminds me of any time I have to open my phone at like a Starbucks or something, and there's people behind me, and I'm like, I don't want to open it up to a picture of a giant penis for some fucking show we're doing, or like a dead butchered body or something like that, because it just the things that the gasps you hear from the people behind you as they see the photos in your phone out of context. And then I just pretend to hide it. No, you didn't see that.
It's not what you think.
Yeah. Really? It's not what you think.
It's just a picture of you with two dicks in your hand.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first told some of my friends in the War Game Guild that I was going to be doing this podcast, because all they ever talk about is the dicks, because we've done so many dicks for so many different shows and movies and everything, and babies, because I'm always puppeteering a baby on a 911 or any kind of a cop show or whatever. It's like, it's a robot baby. In fact, yeah, I mean, that's obviously why I was out there to visit you a few weeks ago in Chicago. I was on Chicago Fire with a baby. So when I said I'm doing this movie review podcast with my brother, one of the guys goes, how much can you talk about dicks and babies? Like, there can only be so much baby dick talk that goes on before you guys are like have exhausted it all.
Tell them to join at the $4 level and throw in some special Patreon content for them.
Absolutely. You want to hear about baby dicks? That's the $4 level.
Hey, did you way back in the day when you used to have to take your film to a photo mat to get it developed, was there one time when like you brought some effects photos and the photo mat developer had some sort of issue? Did you get like the cops called or something like that because of some of the questionable things that were on there?
I had the police investigating my murder because I worked on a movie called Slaughter of the Innocents. And I was working with a guy, Gabe Bartalos, and we made a body of me that's on a cross that's been gutted. So it's I still have that body actually, or a mold of the head out in the garage. And so it's like my body eviscerated on a cross, opened up. You see the ribs and everything, and it's really, kind of fucked up. And, back then, yeah, we shot everything on film and took it to the photomat. And it wasn't me, it was Gabe. He had taken it to a photomat near where he lives, and they knew who he was, so they developed it like they would any of the other stuff. They're not, they're used to seeing that kind of shit, but there was a light leak in the camera. So he had this big stack of pictures that he basically just threw in the trash outside the photo developing place. And some woman saw him throw a stack of photos in there and went over there, unbeknownst to him, and like pulled these photos out of the trash and immediately went to the police. And
oh my God.
The police went in and questioned the guy in the photo developing place, and he said, yeah, that's a guy and he works in the movies. And they're like, okay. But they still followed Gabe around for about a week or so, keeping an eye on him to make sure that he actually wasn't some kind of a killer, and he was really just a makeup effects guy. So yeah.
Now wait a second. Wasn't Slaughter of the Innocents, didn't it have Scott Glenn playing the character that he played in Silence of the Lambs?
I don't think it's the same character name, but it is a character exactly like that character.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
And of course, Slaughter of the Innocents, Silent of the Lambs. Yeah, they were trying to go for that.
Sure.
Yeah. That cash grab. That Scott Glenn cash grab. It's not like Jesus Scott Glenn from The Keep. Boy, that's a weird one. Speaking of Michael Mann, that is a weird one. Yeah.
You were using Scott Glenn for a cash grab, weren't you?
Weren't you son of a bitch?
Silence of the Lambs. You threw the pictures in the trash to get attention.
Didn't you?
You knew that woman.
Fuck yeah.
Oh.
Good stuff. Shall we go to the lobby and come back and talk about another movie?
Yes, because I am out of coffee, and I'll go refill, and we'll be back and talk a little bit about LongLegs.
LongLegs.
Let's do it.
Hello there. Give the demonstration of my new invention, the Goodies Machine. Special for patrons of this drive-in, the machine turns out delicious hot doggies one after the other. And thirst-quenching sodas also. Gives popcorn of the most tasty kind, plain unbuttered. Candy too, crunchy and dandy. Steaming hot coffee and ice cream too. These goodies are at a snack bar just waiting for you.
Welcome back from the lobby. That coffee sounds delicious. You made the yummy coffee noise afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's keeping me out of the mental institution.
Folgers.
Not for crazy people.
Are we going to do a Folgers commercial?
I am. So that, I definitely will take that clip of the movie and stamp a little Folgers on the end.
Perfect. Oh, I love that.
So, we're going to talk about LongLegs.
LongLegs. So this will be the spoiler-free version of LongLegs. We'll chat about it a little bit. We'll give our basic overview of whether we liked it or not, and then we will take a quick break and then come back and kind of break it down and get real deep into it. Do you want to tell us what LongLegs is?
Sure. I got a little summary here. LongLegs. Micah Monroe plays FBI agent Lee Harker on the hunt for LongLegs. mysterious serial killer who leaves whole families dead in his wake, and cryptic coded messages. To get to the bottom of this case, she must wrestle with demons, both of the past and present. Can she crack the case and put a stop to the killings before LongLegs strikes again? You'll have to watch and find out. This movie is very creepy, very atmospheric. A couple weeks ago when we watched Maxine, I asked you, like, is this even a horror movie? Because I thought this really feels more like a thriller or other things, the gory moments aside. Yep. LongLegs, 100% a horror movie, very creepy throughout, very atmospheric throughout. Ultimately, though, I didn't like it so much. But why don't you tell me what you thought of it first, and we can kind of bounce back and forth.
It's funny. You had mentioned that your father listened to the podcast, and he said, I'm not doing his voice. He said, you guys sound a lot alike. And sometimes it's hard for me to tell the difference between the two of you. But also, you have the same opinion on stuff. I keep waiting for you guys to get into an argument or have a difference of opinion on something. And I think your dad's right.
Shit. I really thought this week we were going to disagree about both movies. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think I feel the same way. This is a brilliantly made, creepy film that is, the cinematography is great. The lighting is great. The sound design is great. The acting is great. Maybe even a touch over the top and a little under the bottom at times.
Yes, that's a very astute observation. That's well said.
But the second half of it, I'm like, okay, this movie is like, I'm going to a 90s serial killer movie party, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're hanging out. Bone Collector is over in the corner over there, and he's playing some music, and fucking Hannibal Lecter is mixing some pate. And
there goes Morgan Freeman.
Yeah,
with that hat on.
Yeah. Morgan Freeman from Seven comes up and says, "Stay away from the pate. No, he made it himself." And you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, I know exactly what this is gonna be about. There's Manhunter. Hey, Manhunter, what's up? And then fucking Willy Wonka comes in. Now you have no idea where this fucking party's going to go. That is what this movie is to me. The first half of the movie, you're like, oh, I know what this is. This is a serial killer movie. This is an FBI procedural. This is a FBI procedural serial killer, status quo, 90s, cool, creepy. What the fuck is it now?
Yeah,
that's what
it is. I felt the same way because I also felt that hard sort of left turn, right? And I thought, boy, this feels really unearned to me. But here's the thing. So I watched this movie twice in less than 24 hours.
Okay.
I will say this. I enjoyed it much more the second time.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking I might like it better the second time I saw it.
But here's the thing. I don't necessarily think that's the mark of a good movie. I mean, there are movies that I like so much that I watch again and I pick up new details or interesting facts. It's all part of, but I enjoy them thoroughly the first time. I watched this last night. I thought, I do not want to watch that movie again. Like there's nothing, but I went back into it today to give it another look and see. And that time I sort of traced some of the story beats earlier in the movie. Oh, look, there are hints as to where it's going earlier on. They have seeded it in, but kind of and I can't believe I'm going to say this. This movie is almost too subtle in that regard. It's super creepy. It's super atmospheric. They do that really well. It's great at making you feel tension, like things could jump out kind of at any moment, come around the corner or through the doorway. It's foreboding. It has a sense of terror about it. And that's what I kind of fixated on the first time I was watching it. The second time, since I knew where it was going, I started to pick up a little bit, and the acting often is very, I mean, you said under the bottom as opposed to over the top. It's very understated all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's so subtle that there's beats and clues that at least I missed the first time through. And it's like there's a lot of YouTube videos out there nowadays that are like the ending of such and such explained. I didn't watch one of those for LongLegs or whatever, but they're for like every movie and every TV show. And it always strikes me as if you have to put out a video that explains the ending of the movie or the show, that's not necessarily a good sign for the show.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to read the footnotes to enjoy the book or know what the fuck is going on. Some books, I want to read the appendices and I want to get further into the world and I want to delve into it. I want to watch that movie I really liked the second time. This one, I didn't want to watch it again, and I did, and it's better than the first time, but I don't necessarily think that marks it as a good film.
I agree. I feel that Osgood Perkins, who is the son of Anthony Perkins, right?
No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anthony Perkins from Psycho, who played the killer in Psycho. This is his son. And I think Osgood, first of all, that's quite a name. Osgood Perkins. That sounds like a character name right out of the gate. I have no idea what he looks like, but I picture him with round glasses and a scarf, and and a megaphone as he's a director, and he's got a beret, and he's just shouting direction. It's probably completely different, and I apologize to Osgood Perkins, but that's the image that comes to mind when I think of it. I imagine he had a strange upbringing with Anthony Perkins as a father, who at the time was an in-the-closet homosexual that had like a fake marriage, right? Because that's what the time was.
Sure.
It wasn't as out in the open. Everyone was trying to hide that kind of stuff. Not anymore, thank goodness.
It'd ruin your career.
Absolutely. So he probably had a very, very odd upbringing. His mother is also, I believe, an actress. I forget her name at the moment, but yeah, probably a weird childhood. And this was written and directed by him. And he's done some other movie too. And the other movie he did is called what is it? The Blackcoat's Daughter. Now I haven't seen The Blackcoat's Daughter, but a lot of people say that they are very similar, as far as the kind of movie it is and the kind of vibe that it gives you. So I think he is probably a brilliant filmmaker.
Oh, there's some really great touches, and we can get into that in the spoiler section.
Absolutely. It's just probably made a movie where they wanted people to talk about it, and they wanted people to overanalyze it, and they wanted people to make YouTube videos about what the ending means or all that kind of shit. And that's not the kind of movie I wanted to see.
Yeah, well, I did read afterwards like an article about some of the things in the movie that I really, unfortunately, I can't. It would venture into spoiler territory, specifically about the big turn in the movie. but yeah, the article was super interesting. It made me realize that I missed a lot of things in the movie. And that kind of just made me mad. Again, almost like it was just too subtle. And I love subtle horror, you know? I love tracking something. Seeing the thing that the director kind of, they're not highlighting it. They don't care if you see it or not, but it just adds to a sense of dread throughout the whole thing. I think particularly about that Flanagan series. Is it The Haunting of Hill House, the first one he did? I always get I always get those titles mixed up, you know. But when they started, like, I remember watching that when they would make the statues move from, like, you know, as a character walked into a room, the statues are facing one way, and then the camera tracks them coming out. The statues have changed the direction they're looking, and they don't call any attention to it. But that show is littered with Easter eggs like that. And later on in the show, they start playing it up even more, but they start very early on. And when my wife and I were watching it and we saw that, we were so excited to be like, oh, let's look in every corner, and do we see reflections of things? And you know, it added so much to the enjoyment of it.
Absolutely.
This movie does have elements like that.
It has elements where you're staring at the screen waiting for something to happen, and it doesn't.
Yes.
It's like a shotgun full of hand jobs and nobody pulls the trigger. Right?
But again, it's too subtle, right? It's too, for me, for my money, I just needed a couple of times for them to pull the trigger. And I found when he did pull the trigger, it was a little sloppy in ways. It's like, that's not how you give a hand job, Oz. Not how you beat off a story point. Is that what I said earlier in this podcast?
From Man Muncher. Oh God, so good. Is that enough of the pre-spoiler version?
Yeah, we'll dip back into the lobby here for a second so we can come back and spoil things.
Yeah.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the diva to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Let's talk about LongLegs.
Welcome back from the lobby.
Hail Satan.
Yeah. Hail Satan indeed. Hail Satan indeed. I didn't know it was a Hail Satan movie going into it. Like I said, I expected cool 90s serial killer party, and fucking Willy Wonka in devil horns shows up at the end.
But here's the thing, like, as it started as the the hunt for the serial killer, and they start uncovering these satanic clues or whatever, I was still all on board, like,
totally.
Okay, this is a little bit Zodiac Killer, maybe a little bit Son of Sam, but
you've got the cipher, which is cool, which actually goes nowhere.
Yeah. So this movie starts off with sort of a flashback sequence, right? They're using, I don't know what the aspect ratio is, but it looks like an old Super 8
looks like a home movie, but it's that 4:3 aspect,
of our heroine at her house being approached by a creep all in white, whose face you just glimpse for a moment. It's actually, I thought, pretty good in the beginning, they just kind of, the camera just, it cuts off the top of his head. You just see, it's Nicolas Cage, right? But you just see his mouth moving, and then he sort of dips in the frame real quick, and they cut away before you really have any time to fixate on him. And
that's when he looked the best. That's like the Jaws shark attitude of it's scarier the less you see.
I agree. And that's also, so Oz Perkins is using a lot of sort of subliminal effects in the movie, sometimes really well, and other times I just found it a little bit confusing. So we got our heroine there in the beginning. She meets this creep. You don't necessarily know what it's all about, but then it flashes forward to present day, or actually, I think this takes place in the 90s, right? Because Bill Clinton is president.
Yeah, it does.
And she's a FBI agent, kind of a new FBI agent, and Micah Monroe, I think that's the actress's name, who she's playing Lee Harker. I don't know if it's an active choice to play her as, I don't think fully autistic, but I don't know. Did you get the sense, like, just her understated performance and her sort of sometimes lack of emotion made me think like, oh, she's playing this character sort of on the spectrum here.
Absolutely. I thought that 100%. I thought she had Asperger's.
Yeah.
And I was reminded of that show, The Tunnel.
Oh, I don't know that show.
Yeah, it's a great show. It's an English show, and it was remade here by the FX network under the title of The Bridge. It's where they find a body, and it's half in one. In the tunnel, it's in the tunnel that goes under the English Channel. So the body is cut in half, and one half is on the English side, and the other half is on the French side. Oh. And she plays the French Asperger's detective. Anyway, I immediately thought of that. So yeah, I thought that's what this character is, but it's not in the end. Not really.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of it's an effective choice in some ways, but when I talk about like the subtlety of this movie kind of being its downfall for me, that acting choice isn't necessarily helping tell the story all the time, because there were things I was like, this should be a bigger deal, maybe, and it's not. No, she doesn't. I mean, she shows a full range of emotion, and the actress actually does a very good job. I'm not sure if it's just a directing choice here, of having her play so sort of buttoned up in some ways emotionally. But we're going to use that nostalgic Super 8 camera frame frequently throughout this movie, and it doesn't, at least on my first viewing, it doesn't always make things any clearer. And it's like, to me, it was like the director kept trying to put the air of mystery into it. But the danger with doing that too much is that after a while, I started to lose the thread just a little bit. I'm actively thinking, like, what's going on? I'm actively trying to make these connections, figure this thing out. And then ultimately, I felt like, oh, there's no way I could figure this out. I've been wasting my time trying to think, like, what does this cipher mean? How is he killing these people?
Yeah, because it's been going on for years. It's like decades that this has been happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and she and you learn kind of early on that she's kind of part psychic, which is an odd thing that doesn't play out too much. Like, they don't make that big of a deal about it.
Well, she certainly didn't see the end coming.
Well, they say she's like half psychic, I think is what Blair Underwood is in this movie, giving a pretty solid performance too. Although sometimes he sounded like oh gosh, I can never remember if it's Keith David, right? I
Or
always want
David Keith.
No, it's Keith David. I did think sometimes Blair Underwood. I was like, is Blair Underwood doing a Keith David impersonation right now?
Right.
Because he
Yeah.
had a bit of that tone to his voice, but it's solid. He plays her boss in the FBI.
Yeah. Like the Scott Glenn. Yeah.
Yes. But there were times where I thought, is this really the way the FBI would operate? If, this young recruit is sort of psychically making some of these choices. And like I said, they don't play it up too much. It just becomes sort of one more weird aspect of this movie to me.
Yeah. Because there isn't much of a police or FBI procedural going on in any of this, except when they go to the house of the latest murder, which I guess was a few years ago, right? They call it the camera house, the camera family. First of all, that's a weird name for a family, and I found that to be distracting. They kept saying the camera house, and I was like, what's special about this house? It's got cameras in it. That was just kind of oddly confusing. But they go there, and it's creepy moment as they're going through the barn, and then she leads them to the doll. They find that doll of the girl.
So this moment too, right? So she has essentially, by this point in the movie, she's gotten a letter, a birthday card from LongLegs.
Yeah, which was a nice creepy moment, by the way.
And yeah, well, and to Oz Perkins' credit, right? She's the framing of that where she has the doorways over her shoulders as looking at this door. You're just waiting for something to come by those doorways the entire time. It just has it does effectively give you this sense of dread throughout the whole thing. That's done
completely. Yeah.
But anyway, she cracks the cipher. It essentially leads them to this camera house. And they go there in the middle of the night.
Which is when you would go to a right?
My wife nudges me. She goes, they couldn't do this during the day. And I was like, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, I think we made the same observation. Yeah.
Yeah. Why are you getting out your flashlight to do this investigation? It would be so much easier in the day, but not nearly as creepy. Yeah. And that's where they find that doll.
Yeah.
Is when this movie it starts to list to one side at this point.
Absolutely. The ship is starting to take on water. and they get that doll into the room where the coroner type guy is investigating it, and he's like, "Oh, it's got real human hair." And I'm thinking, yeah, almost every fucking quality doll has real human hair, asshole. Like anytime we make something, it's real human hair. You don't use fucking synthetic or plastic bullshit because you can't style it. So yeah, it's got real human hair. Not a big deal. But they made it sound like, no, that's so creepy. Now, if it had real human teeth, that's fucking creepy. Right? So human hair, not a big deal. And then they find that ball on the inside and they're like, oh, what's inside of it? It's nothing. There's nothing inside of it. Well, you know what doesn't show up on a scan? Satan. Satan's not going to show up on a scan.
It was this movie is practically humorless.
Yeah.
Right? There is hardly...
I mean, we're making a lot of jokes, but yeah, there's no fun in this movie.
But perhaps there's just one joke in there, which is when the coroner type guy or the guy who's investigating the doll, he's like, well, check this out, and he scans it, and he had some sort of like electro spectrometer or something. He's moving around the metal ball they find in the doll's head. Yeah. Our heroine gets a flashback that again doesn't really clear anything up, doesn't help us solve a mystery or move us any closer to it, really. Like I said, it made sense on the second watch, but not on the first one. And then that guy says something like, "Yeah, it's pretty much, I was playing with it last night. I swear I kept whispering my ex-wife's name, but that's crazy." Like he said that.
Yeah.
Because that ball is full of, satanic intentions.
Yeah.
So that was the one moment in the whole movie where I kind of laughed, oh, that's kind of funny. But
Mhm. I don't think it wasn't meant to be funny.
No, I mean, I'm a big fan of, sometimes you have to have like a little moment of levity or something to let the horror land a little
You
harder.
really do. In a good horror movie, you absolutely need that. Absolutely.
And this movie, I mean, good horror movie, good any movie, you want to just have some balance to the emotions. If it's just one thing the whole time, it can become unbearable. And this movie is, I wouldn't say it's unbearable, but it started getting to a point around here where I start to actively not like it. And that's pretty much when our boy Nicolas Cage starts showing up on the regular here.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
Yeah. Now, the makeup is creepy, and I know that it was designed to make his character appear to be somebody who has had way too much plastic surgery done. So like the nose is pulled up and the cheeks are tight and everything is just sort of misshapen and looks like it has implants, and he's got like a weird little butt chin that looks unnatural, and all of that was part of the design. And I think the design is very interesting in that you look at somebody that gets that amount of plastic surgery done and you think, oh fuck, they just look creepy, right? So that was a good choice. And I know that Oz Perkins wanted LongLegs to appear like a glam rocker that is still trying to hold on to that whole aspect of, powdery face makeup and, skin tight and the long hair, and he's singing and it's so he's like an old glam rocker that sold his soul to the devil and probably is now having to make up for the fact that he's no longer a popular glam rocker but has to like pay his dues now. So I think there are moments of the story where that is kind of cool and that is kind of how it works, but none of that is ever explained. And I only know that because I looked it up and I'm like, oh, glam rocker. Okay, sure. And he's singing. It's all starting to like click into place. That's why I say I feel like they went out of their way to make a movie that people have to analyze and look deeply in before they start to understand it.
Yeah. And it's frustrating that it does get more rewarding that way if you do the research, because I want the film to stand on its own merits. I want to, like I said, I want it to be the kind of thing like a novel where I want to read the footnotes or the appendices at the back. I want to learn more about the world and have that excite me even more. I don't want to have to do the research because I don't know what the heck is going on. And boy, all I could think of is, why does this dude like T-Rex so much? Like, I've been on a real glam rock jag lately. I've been listening to a lot of like Electric Warrior and, like that T-Rex album so great. And then I noticed like, all right, so it starts off with the T-Rex quote and then he's listening to T-Rex and then he's got a poster of T-Rex on the wall. I was like, what? Why all the T-Rex? But now it makes sense to me because you've done research post watching this film. And I just personally find that annoying.
He even walks around like a T-Rex, like he's got his arm, he's got the short little arms up near the nipples, like
True, he does.
Yeah,
he does.
But the makeup, I thought it's effective, but again, it's shown too much. It's effective in how creepy it looks, and obviously there's two versions of it. There's the younger version, and then there's an older version. And the older version, he looks way more haggard and beat up. But it was applied by a guy named Harlow McFarlane, which is a fucking amazing name, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't know him. I don't know him at all, but I would hire a private investigator named Harlow McFarlane.
Yeah, that is a hard-boiled name right there.
Absolutely. He's got a 45 in his coat, and he's got a hat pulled down, and he's got a grimace.
Yeah. Gets 2 fingers of rye at the local
Absolutely.
pub.
He's Mike Hammer right out of the fucking gate. But yeah, it's an effective look. And then, when he's in the interrogation room, again, going back to Manhunter, when the first time they meet is when he smashes through the window and they're face to face. The first time Micah met Nick Cage as the character was when she walked into that room for the scene.
I had heard that.
Yeah.
I had heard that. And I'd heard that, like, her heart was beating so hard that the microphone was picking it up.
Yeah, which I think is cool. Which makes me think of the sound design in this movie, which is absolutely fucking top notch. Like, everything in this movie is good, except the story is just too weird. Had it been more straight laced, I would say this movie is 100%. But it just gets too weird. But the sound design, I don't know if you heard about any of this. They do a lot of backwards masking, which might be what was wrong with our lobby. When we were in there a few minutes ago. But
I thought I heard something going on there.
Absolutely. They recorded a bunch of things and then ran them backwards, and they did a lot of whispers and a lot of creepy little stuff that's in the sound design as subliminals. And I know that one of the things they said is give us a good score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh my God.
It's at an 85, so it's working.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Like, I would expect, because I don't think we're going to give this movie very favorable review, I'd expect a lot of pushback from people who do like it, because they enjoyed it and they've done the research and they're finding out little bits like that, and they're getting kind of excited about all the little extra details that were added. And when I know when they pick up the phone a couple times, you do hear those weird whispers, and it's kind of backward sounding stuff. And another thing, so I thought one of the things that was good was the 1 or 2 times you see the devil through the black veil, or that demon through the black veil, that red face kind of glows from behind. And I was like, that is a creepy devil face right there. That is cool.
Yeah.
So then I looked up, because after I watched it the second time, I was just trying to find that part in the movie. So I looked up, like, where's the devil face in LongLegs? And then I found this article from Vulture that talks about all the times the devil appears in LongLegs. And it is way more than I thought or noticed.
Really?
Yeah. So, again, Oz Perkins trying to do a lot of subliminal things here. Obviously, with the sound, he's recording things backwards and playing that subtly through.
Mm-hmm.
There are numerous times where it states, like, you can see the devil, and essentially he's always kind of in the shadows, but you'll see his horns poking over, like, over the door frame, standing in the shadows, like when she's going through her toy chest, or like at the end of the long hallway through window, when she's in the library, like looking up stuff, or at the very end of the movie, when she gets to Blair Underwood's house and it's his daughter's birthday party. Blair Underwood closes the door, and just for a brief second, you see the reflection in the window of the door closing, of like a figure with big horns.
Fuck. I'm going to have to rewatch this now, and I don't want to.
Yeah, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about, because I didn't notice any of that stuff. And I thought, God, is the resolution or the brightness on my TV just not turned up enough that I didn't see this kind of stuff? They say also, like, when she's got the 9th birthday card and she's in her house, the devil is back there in one of the corners. But even in the article, it had still shots of the moment, and I'm looking at it, and I still don't see it. in there. Sometimes I did, and then I went and I rewatched the end of it, that last moment where Blair Underwood shuts the door, and I was like, oh yeah, very clearly, there it is, right there.
Well, that's cool. This movie's got a lot of great intentions.
It is cool, but again, it's too subtle for me. Like I said, when I was talking about watching Haunting of Hill House, like, I love tracking stuff like that, or keeping my eye out for ghosts and the reflections of things in the windows and the mirrors as the camera passes by, or subtle little changes. I mean, that can hook me in particular into really sort of getting absorbed into something. But this stuff, I just missed it. I missed it both times. I watched it the second time, I didn't even know, and then I read that article and son of a bitch.
Yeah, now you're gonna have to watch it a third time.
Yeah, I will not. I don't need to watch it a third time.
Yeah,
but I'm
gonna watch parts of it a second time because now I want to see this shit.
Yeah, check out that article. It's I think it's a Vulture article.
Let's put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it.
But so we know the good, the cinematography, the lighting, the sound design.
Yeah.
Name some. Give me some bad. I mean, we've been talking about some bad, but what's your key of bad?
Okay, my biggest gripe here, and it is the satanic stuff, which is It is the big bad, right? The big bad is the devil. Like, LongLegs is working for the devil.
Yeah.
And Nick Cage has that little, like, "Hail Satan," kissy kissy thing at the end of the movie. That's just so cutesy. And I found it kind of infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
But my biggest problem is, I thought, what is the devil's motivation? Now, maybe you could say, like, well, it's the devil. It doesn't have to have motivation. They just want to do bad things to people. They just want the most harm on people. But no, I don't. That's not acceptable to me. You look at all the great movies that feature this kind of stuff, like Rosemary's Baby. Those Satanists, they're trying to get Rosemary to give birth to the Antichrist, right?
Yeah.
The Omen, they want to take care of that kid because he's going to bring around the end times, right? He's going to become some sort of delegate that will bring around the apocalypse. The Exorcist, right? She's playing around with a Ouija board or something and gets possessed by a demon. That's actually enough for me. Like, okay, you were fooling around with something you weren't supposed to. This movie, there's such a plan. The devil has such a plan for, like, LongLegs is going to make these dolls, and he's going to infuse the spirit of the doll, and then this nun or fake nun is going to take the doll to this house, and then the doll is going to drive the father crazy, and he's going to kill all the kids. But, like, to what end? I was like,
yeah,
why?
Kind of pointless.
Yeah. Like, there's no grander scheme to it. It's just like the devil's just fucking around. And maybe that's the answer, but I find that to be a really unsatisfying answer. I want there to be a little bit more at stake. And like I said, I couldn't figure out the motivation behind it. I didn't get an answer. And at the end, when, LongLegs Nick Cage was like, "Hail Satan," and he makes like a kissy face, I think I said, "Fuck you."
Oh, yeah.
Roll credits, and I was like, "Fuck off." I looked at my wife, and we both just made like a thumbs down. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and I said, "Fuck, I'm going to have to watch that movie again," and I don't want to.
Yeah.
So now I'm even a little bit more upset that I watched it a second time, and I've learned a bunch of cool stuff about it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like this movie has such good intentions of being like the coolest thing since sliced bread, and a lot of people are really treating it as that.
Oh
But in
yeah.
the end, it just doesn't have like you say, the story just falls flat. Like there's no point to any of that. Now, did you call it? Like, did you know that it was the mom? Because I would say 30 minutes before the end of the movie, I thought it's going to end up being the FBI chick. I thought Micah was going to end up being, the hidden accomplice, and that she was like blacking out and she was the one that was doing it.
Sure.
I wasn't far from the truth.
Yeah, I mean, she is a part of the devil's plan, I guess, because he wants to kill her, and then the mom says, "No, spare her, and I'll do your dirty work." So then the mom becomes the devil's or LongLegs' accomplice in all of this.
So in the beginning, was Longlegs supposed to be like a serial killer? Like he was actually doing the killing and he came to kill them, and then she said, "No, I'll do your bidding for you." I mean, that just doesn't make any sense.
I think it is a little bit closer to that. Like maybe he pawns off the responsibility to her mom, I mean, in exchange for the girl's life. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of unsatisfying. I didn't see it coming. At the end, she's forced to shoot her own mother, which is pretty terrible. But like, was that the devil's end goal then? On that whole thing, was that part of the master plan?
Does she take over for her mother now? I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Another smaller issue I had, but it has to do with like the flashbacks, and there are like jump scares that have a bunch of rapid sort of subliminal type images. And then there are things like, I think when the investigator, when they have the doll and the guy's going to make that comment about his ex-wife, yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
And he puts the monitor by the ball. She has like a flashback, and there's a couple of them, and then it shows like serpents, it shows like snakes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I was just like, that's fucking cheap. It's like, okay, I guess we associate fucking serpents with the devil, but like you could have put something in there that was a little bit more central to the story, that might have been like a clue as to something, instead of just doing like a cheap, like, you could have just shown like a bunch of fire or like a pitchfork or a fork. It was just like
a laughing devil head and fire. Yeah.
What do snakes have to do with anything?
Yeah.
I found myself. Go ahead.
This movie has no procedural fun to it. There's no way for you to follow along with the clues and guess as to what's going on. And I think you mentioned that earlier. It's just like they give you like the cipher. The cipher is really cool, yet to no fun end, right? It's not like you're allowed to sort of be in on how to figure out what the cipher is. He fucking gives her the key in the card, right?
Yeah.
So like she's like, "Oh yeah, I broke the cipher." Well, how'd you do that? Well, he fucking gave her the key. So there's nothing. There's no like cool hell yeah moments of, oh, they figured that out. It's just kind of all stumbling through this.
Yeah. Right. Like the moment in Manhunter, right, where he deduces that the Tooth Fairy works for a film development studio. Like that's the procedural moment that you want to happen in this, right? Where in Manhunter, where he goes through like, you could see these people, you could see their houses. How could you see their houses? Because you developed the film.
Don't you son of a bitch!
Yeah.
You've seen them before, haven't you, you son of a bitch? You've watched all their films and you've seen them.
That's the moment I'm talking about. All right.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Folgers.
We needed a moment like that.
You don't get that doll. The doll doesn't come into the picture until much later in the movie. and like, yeah, a little bit of a chance to see things and recognize things. I found myself a lot, comparing this movie in some ways to Hereditary, which also has that sort of cult and satanic or demonic element to it. But what Hereditary does so well is that when you find all that stuff out, it traces back to all of these points in that movie where you're like, oh my God, this woman, oh my God. Like all the dots start to connect and ramp up to the climax. And this one, I mean, she was given the cipher. In fact, it all comes in sort of like a third act exposition dump.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Mom is saying, like, once upon a time, there was this guy and he made these dolls. Gives you the whole thing right there.
It's a little like the end of the Saw movies when they're like, that Saw theme is playing and it's like, and this happened and then this happened and then this happened. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'll tell you though that Ruth Harker, Alicia Witt, the actress that played her,
oh yeah,
did a really great job. Not as cool as was not like Piper Laurie cool, but definitely had that cool, like, I'm a crazy mom, hoarder, so
say your prayers.
Absolutely. Like all that stuff was creepy and well done. And I buy the fact that she, kind of is the killer in the end, but it just bothered me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the acting is good. Again, so many things to give this movie good marks on. But overall, I don't know. How many shotgun blasts are we going to give this movie?
I'll tell you, this should have been 9 shotgun blasts, not 9 hand jobs shot out of a shotgun. And instead it's 6.66.
I don't even want to disgrace the number of the beast by associating this, like, no, because it was so thinly painted on sometimes, and it was just like, it's satanic, like, boo, but a complete lack of motivation and understanding behind it. So I would have originally given this movie probably 4.5 on my first viewing, because I was really just kind of fed up with it by the end. Unfortunately, I watched it again, and and I have to give it higher marks for that.
Sure, because you went, oh, I get it.
Yeah, but I find that unsatisfying because I feel like the art doesn't stand on its own as much as it should. It's like requiring a little bit of extra, of diving into it. And maybe that's what the kids do these days. They go, they want to dive into YouTube videos about everything and read the articles. So I'm going to give it 6.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to give it 6. Because listen, the creep factor, super high. The sense of terror, dread. I may not have noticed all the times that I may not have seen the devil, but I think I noticed most times, like, what's going on, right? Because I'm getting real uneasy.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is all about uneasy, like and the framing is so good when she's in her house and she's, talking to her mom on the phone, but she's on the left side of the camera and there's all this open space on the right side of the camera, including the doorway in the background. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nobody pulls the trigger.
I said, Jesus, get a dog.
Yeah.
She's got a giant house out in the woods. There's nothing around. It's so dark. I was like, why do you not have a dog in that place?
Yeah. Yeah. I like the fact that he refers to himself as the man downstairs and he lives in her mother's basement.
Yeah.
Lots of weird little subtle notes that you wouldn't get unless you knew it. Falls a little flat, Oz. just a little flat.
I'm curious to see what he'll do next, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously talented filmmaker.
Oh yeah, yeah, and tried hard, and I think in a lot of people's eyes, really succeeded. Really
Yeah.
succeeded. This movie, I think it made its budget back in the first week that it was out.
Yeah.
I think it
Well,
was
most
made.
of the people that gave it the fucking high marks for, Rotten Tomatoes, they were coerced by Satan and by backwards masking in the movie itself. It's already been proven. They came out and said, give us a good review on Rotten Tomatoes. You got to know that had to work a little.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Just like playing a Judas Priest album backwards.
That's right. And then deciding to kill your parents.
God.
We're not advocating for killing your parents.
No. Just don't play the podcast backwards.
Do not play the podcast backwards. But I'm curious what AI Gene Siskel would say about this movie.
Oh no, you didn't do it again, did you?
Of course I did. With the powers of Satan, I have brought back AI Gene Siskel.
Okay, let me think. What is Gene Siskel gonna have to say about this?
Out of 4 stars, what do you think he's going to give it?
2 stars.
Okay.
Gene doesn't like horror movies. The general feeling I'm getting, or I should say this: Gene did not seem to like horror movie.
True. We can't speak of him in the present tense.
I know. That's disrespectful, and he's a titan of the industry.
Absolutely. Titan of the industry, Gene Siskel. LongLegs is a mesmerizing, slow-burning descent into madness. Well, he's right about that. Reminiscent of the works of Bergman and Polanski.
Oh my God.
Osgood Perkins' direction weaves a hypnotic spell, drawing us into this eerie world of his troubled protagonist. The film's use of shadows, silence, and an unsettling score creates an unnerving atmosphere, making the viewer feel like an uneasy voyeur. I feel like the ghost of Gene Siskel watched this movie. The cast delivers nuanced performances, particularly the lead, who embodies the character's fragile psyche with haunting vulnerability. While the pacing may test some viewers' patience, true, I found the deliberate tempo essential to the film's spellbinding impact. Gene, I think you were wrong there.
Oh, man.
If I have a quibble, it's that the story sometimes prioritizes mood over clarity. Fucking spot on.
Yeah, bullseye, Gene.
Leaving some plot threads tantalizingly vague. Nevertheless, LongLegs is a gripping, unsettling experience that will linger in your mind long after the credits roll. 3.5 out of 4 stars.
Wow. Better than Carrie, then.
Yeah, what the fuck, Gene?
Yeah. It's amazing how much I'm disagreeing with
Again,
Gene Siskel.
Again, we disagree with Gene Siskel.
Yeah.
And he gave a movie a good review.
Yeah.
Please note that this review is fictional.
Yes. Does not truly represent the views of Gene Siskel, titan of the industry.
It has tried to capture the essence of Gene Siskel's critical style, which is often emphasized atmosphere, performance, and direction. But again, this is purely whatever the fuck it is. Yeah, I think that's it. Let's tell everyone how to find us. What's our Instagram?
Yeah, that Instagram is the whole damn thing 13. So look for us on Instagram. You can find a link to our Patreon and find all of our shows through that, as well as our incredible Patreon content. We're adding new stuff all the time.
Absolutely. And at Patreon, we are the whole damn thing at patreon.com. And again, follow the Instagram, go there. If you're listening to us on Podbean or Spotify, there's always going to be a link at the bottom that's going to take you to the Instagram or to the Patreon. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of good stuff going on over there. Plus, if you join the Patreon, even at a free level, you get to come to the Discord channel where you can say all kinds of things to us. Yeah, there's going to be all kinds of polls on the Discord. We want to hear from people what you want us to do, what dumb shit you want us to do for Patreon content too. And I'm telling you, it's going to be worth that cup. It's less than the price of a cup of coffee. Sally Struthers would be yelling at you that you should be jumping on the Patreon.
You jumped on the Patreon, didn't you? You jumped on it for just the price of a cup of coffee. God damn you!
You son of a bitch! You bought into the Patreon, didn't you? Yes.
If you want to get in touch with us, the whole damn thing, 13@gmail.com. Send us your questions, your concerns, your comments. Did we miss the mark? Is there something you want to see? Is there something you're maybe too shy to put on the Discord?
Yeah.
Gmail us. Hit us up. Who knows? We might respond.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to reading hate mail. So by all means.
We're going to put that on our Patreon. Keep an eye out for that. It's going to be nothing but people saying bad shit about us, and we'll post it. We got no fear of that.
Patreon content is a fantastic idea.
Cannot wait. Better than that third cup of coffee.
The head, the tail, the whole damn thing.
And that wraps up episode 4. Please join us next time for episode, what are we calling the next one?
5.
Episode 5. Interesting. Where the boys will review Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and Late Night with the Devil. I have a terrible cold and we had to do some re-recordings. I'm in the forest outside Budapest. It's not easy being an announcer. And by the way, if any of you saw LongLegs, my good friend Nick Cage was doing quite a bit of actor baiting in that one. That's when you cross acting with self-indulgent masturbating on camera. He's not actually masturbating. It's a word I just made up, actor baiting. Anyway, it's my word against yours.